And now for what's making news in our Newsmakers segment. Joining us this week, our political theorist and philosopher, Dr. Tim Soutphommasane. Welcome to you. And we have a new recruit, if you like, Romily Madew, who's the Chief Executive of the Green Building Council of Australia. Thanks so much for coming in.
Great to be here.
First of all, let's look at the environment, and we'll soon have a new multi-party climate change committee. Let's first hear what Greens leader Bob Brown has had to say about this.
Is a climate change committee because it also encompasses, as the Prime Minister and her team have said, energy efficiency and the renewables and any other matter that's going to naturally help us towards tackling dangerous climate change and getting the advantages which tackling that involves. I think one of the things that will bring us focus our minds greatly is the win for the economy that will come out of this once we start looking beyond the next 6 months.
Bob Brown there. Romily Madew, do you think community consensus is the way to design a climate change policy?
I would have thought we probably already have community consensus, and I think it's probably time just to move forward. We've learnt so much over the last 10 to 15 years in climate change, and so many different industries have achieved so much, as the building industry has, for instance. Maybe it's time just to meet them. They can meet very quickly, but let's just move on.
Tim Soutphommasane, we've had a lot of discussion about carbon tax, no carbon tax. Was it a promise? Is it not a promise? Why is there so much focus on this one area to almost the neglect of the rest of the climate change issue?
Well, arguably it reflects the great success Tony Abbott has had in framing the climate change debate as concerning whether or not there will be a great new big tax that will be introduced. Part of the challenge for the government and for this climate change committee is to reframe the debate and to present the climate change issue as more than just about the rise of costs in living. There's a real opportunity here to build or rebuild a consensus around nation building and seeing a transition to a lower carbon economy as an opportunity as much of a threat. I think that will be the real challenge for the government. How
effective is this committee going to be, though, if the coalition refuses to allow its MPs to sit on that committee?
Well, I think any consensus will be limited if there isn't coalition presence in this committee. Tony Abbott has been playing very hardline politics on this issue, and I think will be revealing whether or not he'll allow his MPs to sit in this committee.
I agree with you, but it is a new change. The really good thing about this committee is the fact that you have the Greens and the Independents, whereas when you look at what was happening with the ETS, the emissions trading scheme, it was very much just a Labor government policy, and they were the ones framing that, and there really wasn't that engagement with the other parties. So it already is a step forward, including the Independents and the Greens. And the industries, all different industries, will push the coalition because they want this. They want certainty with the price on carbon. So the industries will be saying to the coalition, come on, we need certainty in this market, both nationally and internationally. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming months about whether the coalition doesn't come on board.
And also what's interesting, we've had the first week of the new paradigm, the new parliament. I'll go crazy if I hear that again. Tim Soutphommasane, how do you think the first week is going to, in a way, shape the rest of the parliamentary season?
Well, I don't think anyone's really looked forward to a parliamentary session in the same way that they have this week. But so much of the new paradigm, what we've been seeing is old-fashioned politics. This is going to be a very competitive, very combative Parliament. The challenge for Julia Gillard is to negotiate and make sure that she can pass through legislation with the support of independents. For Tony Abbott, who's been playing, again, very hardball, hardline politics, the challenge for him is to be able to present himself as a credible alternative Prime Minister and not just a political wrecking ball.
Romily Madew, given that all the politicians are going to have to be there basically every time there's a division, this is going to put a lot of pressure on both sides, isn't it?
It is, and what's going to be interesting is the outcomes that we're going to be able to achieve. They can't hide anymore, they have to appear. They can no longer go to the morning teas and the charity events, which some of them have said, but it actually makes for exciting politics. It's brought a bit of thrill back into what's happening in Canberra, and I've spent a lot of time down in Parliament House, and everyone now has to go down there. including all the lobbyists, because if you want time with the politicians, you need to be in Parliament House. So it'll be an exciting 3 years.
Speaking about exciting politics, on the National Broadband Network this week, we've had the Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim Helu saying it's far too expensive. Malcolm Turnbull's actually called it a repugnant monopoly. Does the coalition have a point?
Well, perhaps we can start with Carlos Slim's remarks, because I thought it was quite interesting. But being the world's richest man doesn't necessarily mean that you're right all the time. What his comments, I think, reveal is really how the private sector views public infrastructure investments. Carlos Slim said it was too expensive, and of course they are probably too expensive from the perspective of the people putting the money in as investors. But if you look at the National Broadband Network as a public utility investment, I think you're likely to see a different picture. There are a great deal of benefits that will accrue from this investment, and it's one reason I think the public sector is better at investing in public utilities than the private sector. When the government invested in the Sydney Harbour Bridge or in the hydro scheme of the Snowy River, people were saying it cost too much then as well, but time has shown that the investment was worth its while in those cases.
Romily, Madew, do you support the NBN?
The technology is crucial, and telecommunications is the way to go. If you're looking at how we all do work now, look at us all now with our computers, iPads, iPhones, laptops, and how we're looking for speed in what we do. It is important. I think a word of warning, which everyone is saying, is do the cost-benefit analysis. Be a bit more transparent about the cost and the benefits. And it seems to be that a lot of people still have concerns at the expense. It's a lot of money. We have a lot of challenges in Australia, both climate change, health and a whole lot of other areas. Whilst I'm not saying technology is not important, I think more work needs to be done in really making the case for the NBN in the expense.
I just want to move on very quickly to Afghanistan. We did have a clip, but I won't play it because we are running out of time. There's been a lot of discussion about whether our soldiers should be prosecuted for offences they commit while they're soldiers. Tim, what's your take on this?
Well, it's tough to comment authoritatively on the situation, but from what has been discussed, it appears that the troops, in this case, were adhering to the rules of engagement, but that's of course up to the military court now to adjudicate. It does bring home the fact that in any armed conflict there are going to be civilian casualties, and of course it does raise the question of Australian involvement in Afghanistan more generally. It's been almost a decade now since Allied troops have been in Afghanistan, and I think perhaps it's time to discuss whether a political solution as opposed to a military solution is the right way to go about it.
Well, let's ask Romily Madew about that. Is a political solution the way, and you need to be quick here, I'm afraid?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think these guys are innocent until proven guilty. I think it's a very challenging situation, so more needs to be discussed about it.
Okay, Romily Madew and Tim Soutphommasane, thank you so much for coming in for Newsmakers today. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you.